Hi and welcome to pmblounge.com. In our recent video, we covered the decision making techniques. We discussed the group decision making techniques. Basically, there are four of them, and I'll link in the description to that video if you want to go over and try to understand what those techniques are. Today, we are only looking into some of the examples of those techniques. If you're still not aware of what those group decision making techniques are, definitely go over to the video in the description, brush up your um, the knowledge of group decision making techniques, and then come back over here and go over certain examples that is going to solidify your understanding of the group decision making techniques. So let's get down to it. And before we kind of start, I'd like to reiterate that this is part of the collect requirements process. We have been covering collect requirements in its entirety. I'll link to the entire playlist in the description below for collect requirements as well as the scope management knowledge area. The collect requirements is part of the scope management knowledge area, which we have covered in quite a bit of length already, and more videos on the topic will come in the future soon. So that playlist will also be available in the description. Go over them, learn a thing or two about scope management knowledge area, collect requirements, group decision making techniques, and come back here, go over these examples, and that is going to uh, you will be pretty much set from exam perspective when it comes to group decision making techniques. Let's get started. All right, so the first example for requirement A basically means a kind of requirement. 6 out of 8 members voted for it to be included in the project, but it still didn't make it into the final project scope. So what kind of group decision making technique has been used here where 6 out of 8 members said that this requirement should be included in the project scope, but it was still not included? This definitely is unanimity. Unanimity decision making technique is when you need 100% people, the 100% members of the group to agree to a certain point, to a certain thing for it to be included in the final work or a requirement to be included in the final project scope. Senior director informed the project team that requirement B must be included in the project as it is of high importance. So senior director walks in your collect requirements, any meeting that you're having within the requirements, or a senior director sends you an email and tells you that there is a requirement which is called requirement B here, and that must be included in the project. There's an email or a word from senior director, and he is also using a word called must. So senior director, someone at a very high position, and he's using the word must. That means by all means you need to include the requirement B in your project scope. This decision making technique is called dictatorship. So senior director has said it, you are going to follow it. That's pretty much dictatorship. All right, let's look into two other examples. Every person in the group voted for his or her top 5 requirements out of 20. So basically there were 20 requirements laid on the table, and every person in the group picked his or her top 5 requirements. After that, the 5 requirements with the highest number of votes were selected as the project scope. So the project was the capacity of the project was to accept 5 requirements. There were 20 requirements on the table. Every person in the group selected his or her top 5 requirements that they wanted to see in the project. The top 5 requirements that received the highest number of votes were selected as part of the project scope. This is definitely plurality. Remember, this is not majority, this is plurality, and there's a difference between majority and plurality. And the next example is definitely going to make sure that you understand the difference. more than half of the group thought requirement C should make the cut, and thus it did. So there was a particular requirement by the name requirement C, and more than half of the group, that means more than 50% of the group, thought that it should be a part of the project scope, and thus it became the part of the project scope. This is majority. When more than half of the people in the group say that certain requirements should be part of the project scope, that makes it to the project scope, that is a decision by majority. So that is again another group decision making technique. So I hope you understood the difference between plurality and majority. You'll definitely receive at least one question in the exam on group decision making technique, and they will be more or less questions like these. So hope this was helpful. And that is all that we had in this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and check us out on our social media, facebook.com/PMP Lounge and twitter.com/PMP Lounge. And as always, do check out the website pmplounge.com, your #1 free resource for PMP certification as well as project management industry information. Thank you.